Picking up on Luke's theme of growing our economy, our last panel focused on entrepreneurs. It'll be a conversation led by Carl Marrara of PMA. PMA is one of the sponsors that make sure that this conference happens and that lots of good things happen in Pennsylvania, and we try to stop as many bad things as possible. If you're around Harrisburg, you know Carl, because if there's a discussion about growing the economy, helping businesses, stopping higher taxes or painful regulations, Carl's either running the meeting or helping those of us in the room figure out what the solution is. He's an effective spokesman for his members. He's an effective spokesman for free markets, for manufacturers, and he's here joined by Greg Moreland and Mike Kennedy, and Carl's going to tell you all about them. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our entrepreneur panel to the stage.
Thank you so much. What started as 3 guys in a garage building and selling one computer, the Apple I, in 1977 led to 235 million iPhones that were sold just last year. Kendra Scott's first business was crafting hats for women undergoing chemotherapy, which evolved into her multi-billion dollar jewelry empire today. In Bradford, PA, George Blaisdell watched a friend struggle to use a 2-handed lighter at the Bradford Country Club and was inspired to make what is now the iconic Zippo lighter. There are many, many more tales of entrepreneurs all over the United States. Many of those stories are far less glamorous than those 3 that I just listed. But entrepreneurs are the backbone of free enterprise. But free enterprise is just that. It's free. Business capital, investors, and workforce behind those ideas have never been as mobile as what they are today. Entrepreneurs choose where they locate, where they hire, where they expand. We want to see those entrepreneurs flourish here in Pennsylvania because that economic activity is where family-sustaining jobs and community support comes from. Today, we explore the topic of entrepreneurship in Pennsylvania with 2 experts. Next to me, Mike Kennedy is a Cumberland County, Pennsylvania native who resides in Dillsburg. He's a Trinity High School and Western Maryland College graduate. He is the husband of Katie and father of 4 children. Raised in a family railroad service business, Mike co-founded the Railroad Associates Corporation in 2000. The company grew to serve over 400 clients and was sold in 2022. Today, he splits his time between Pennsylvania and the free state of Florida, and also in New Jersey. He enjoys mentoring others and supporting entrepreneurial ventures. Thanks for joining us, Mike.
Thank you.
Also with us today is Greg Moreland. Greg is the state director at the National Federation for Independent Business. Greg is a 7-year Army veteran, a Purple Heart recipient who earned his bachelor's and master's from Penn State in 2007 and 2016. He began his career as a PA House research intern, later serving as Speaker's policy advisor and chief of staff to the late Senator Dave Arnold. Greg joined NFIB in 2021 to advocate for small business owners. He serves on the Penn State Harrisburg Alumni Society Board, the United Way of Pennsylvania Board, and the Pennsylvania Compensation Rating Bureau Executive Board, and is a member of the Military Order of the Purple Heart Chapter of 1983. Thank you so much for joining us. Mike, I'm going to start with you. From your experience building businesses, what are the biggest hidden barriers in Pennsylvania that policymakers often underestimate?
I would say when you talk about hidden barriers, people that start businesses many times I think are driven by fear and uncomfortability. They're uncomfortable working in a typical 9-to-5 environment. Many have a fear that if they don't try, they never will, and they won't know what they miss. So I'm not sure exactly how to answer the hidden part, but I would say the barriers today are far greater than when I started back in the late 90s. I think there's so many barriers that may be hidden because people don't really know in terms of licensing, permitting, how litigious the world can be when they don't even know they did anything wrong. I think there's a lot of barriers, but I still think I look at this young generation and I think there's a lot of enthusiasm, with young people, and there's a lot of willingness, and there's a lot of small businesses that somebody needs to buy, start, run. Just a real quick story. After we sold the railroad business, I started doing more land development, and I did a project a couple years ago where it took 2 years to get the sewer and water just authorized. Meanwhile, the capacity is there. So I go through all these calisthenics, and at the kickoff meeting, the director of the sewer and water program says, I want to say a prayer. And I thought, oh, this is sort of cool. He blessed everybody in that room except for me, the developer. I thought, well, hell yeah, without me, none of this is happening, right? So I just sat there and shook my head, and okay, thank you very much, and maybe next time he'll bless me. But there's such a disconnect that there's barriers everywhere, but I still think there's tons of opportunity.
Would it be fair to say that we often add layers, but seldom remove any of the layers that were already in existence?
Absolutely, and to get around or get over some of these layers, you really got to know somebody. And that's what's difficult. But young guys, I know a young guy that's in the clearing business, and he started, and he's out, and he's hustling, and he's making money. There's still opportunity.
Greg, when you think about expanding or locating operations, what factors matter most, and how does Pennsylvania stack up against the states that we're competing against for that investment?
Yeah, I think it's important that when you're looking at policy, you compare yourself and where we're at on the continuum of the 50 states, right? There are numerous different factors that are in play when you're looking to expand your business, start a business. Income taxes, certainly one of them. The personal income tax or the corporate net income tax, whichever your business pays. Property tax burdens, estate inheritance tax burdens, workforce participation rates, GDP growth, sales and use tax policy. These are all factors that the business owner needs to consider when looking into expanding. And I'll dig a little bit deeper on each one of those. Here in the Commonwealth, Pennsylvania ranks 36th out of 50 in their economic outlook. 36 out of 50. I'm no mathematician, but that's certainly in the bottom half, about the bottom third there. For PIT, personal income tax, we rank 37th. In 1990, it was 2.1% personal income tax. Today, 2026, it's 3.07%. And unfortunately, with the current economic position that the Commonwealth is in, unfortunately, in a couple of years, your PIT is likely to increase again because we're absolutely broke and have no money in the coffers after this year's budget. For corporate net income tax, we rank 48th out of 50. We did have a 9.99% corporate net income tax rate, being brought down to 4.99, I think by 2032 or so. But the problem is that it's likely to get paused in the middle of that step down because of the poor economic condition that the Commonwealth is in. Property tax burden, we rank 24th in the country. We're in the middle there, but I think we have such a poor, antiquated property tax system. I don't think if we were to create the Commonwealth today and put in place property taxes, we would do it in the exact same manner that we have in place today. Looking at estate inheritance tax burdens, we rank 50th. Do you know that we are only one of 5 states that actually even has an inheritance tax? And don't worry, when you pass, the government's going to show up while your family's grieving and with that handout and saying, hey, we're sorry for your loss, but we hear it's time for our gain, right? We shouldn't be taxing folks like this at their worst time, taxing and assessing taxes on money that's already been taxed. Don't think it hasn't been taxed already. It's already been taxed. Here the government is with their hands out again. Workforce participation rates. You need a workforce to operate your business. If no one's willing to come to work, you don't have a business, you have a hobby. Pennsylvania, we have an extremely old state. From 2013 to 2023, we exported 250,000 residents. We rank 44th in population growth. This means, and this is one of the reasons why, we continue to lose a congressional seat every time we go through a census and redistricting process. We continue to lose because we're importing older folks, but we're exporting our younger working folks. GDP, we rank 44th. Do you want to open a business and expand a business in a Commonwealth that's barely operating, right? No, you want to be in a prosperous place that has a bunch of good policies on the books. And here's one policy issue that I'll talk about here that's on the books here in the Commonwealth, and it's the accelerated sales tax prepayments. We're one of the only states that does this. Back in 2007, the government was short $200 million, and they needed $200 million to close their budget gap. Well, what did they do? They looked to the business community, and they said, hey, guys, we're going to have you pay accelerated, estimated sales tax prepayments, meaning you're going to pay accelerated ahead of time before you ever even made a sale. You're going to be paying sales tax on that based off of last year's estimates. If I'm a worker, I wouldn't like my paychecks to be taxed prior to even getting them and paying it forward so the government could simply spend more of your hard-earned money. Overall, we rank 36th in the country. I could go on for hours probably about the bad policies that are on the books and the even worse policies that are being proposed in some of the chambers, but we will move on with the conversation. But taxes are going up. We're not in a very prosperous position right now as a Commonwealth. We could be doing a lot better.
And I think it's important to note, too, that competitiveness does not happen in a vacuum. So, I mean, even as our corporate net income tax rate is lowering, other states are going to look at the fact that we are lowering our rates and lower theirs even more to compete for that investment. You bring up a lot of really great points. Mike, pivoting a bit, but workforce is often a major issue for entrepreneurs. I know this is a passion of yours, and just a simple question: are you finding the talent that you need to do the jobs that you need to do successfully? And if not, what's missing?
So, thankfully, I'm not as big as an employer as I once was. I'm not actively looking for people. But if I were, the answer would be no. I think COVID really had a negative impact on people, the workforce. I don't know what happened, but it's, I think the biggest issue I try to stay positive with this younger generation. I think the biggest issue, honestly, is their education, both in school and at home. When we can all talk about when we were young. When we were young, there was a little bit of hustle, a little bit of scramble, and you see a lot less of that today. But there are so many opportunities for young people to start at the bottom, work their way up, buy a business, start a business, that I think that's not being discussed. I really don't. I don't think that's in the cards. I think a lot of people, another big lie that has been told is marijuana is okay. Right? And now, I was with a state legislator not too long ago, and they were talking about the tax or the legalization of marijuana, getting more of these alcohol products into the mix. It's like, these people are dopey enough. You don't need to be promoting dope. And what do you expect kids to want to do as far as hustle and scramble if they're half stoned all the time? So I think the workforce is a serious problem, but it doesn't have to stay that way. Why do we think, with AI just at the tip of the iceberg, why do we think we need to keep sending people to college to learn how to memorize and regurgitate when all they have to do is hit a button? Let's train them to anticipate. Let's train them to, see opportunity and discuss opportunities with older people, because with everybody, with this huge block of people retiring, those people want to see their children and grandchildren do well, and they want to share their wisdom. How are we facilitating that?
So I had this question for Representative Gaydos. Representative Gaydos was supposed to be on this panel, unfortunately had a funeral that she needed to attend this morning of a close family friend. So Greg, I'm going to ask this of you, but I think it reflects your answer to the last question. What policies have you seen in some other states that have successfully encouraged startup formation and scale in those states that could and should be replicated here?
Yeah, I think as Mike was talking about regulation earlier, regulation, many other states have, or some other states have policies on the book that if they're going to introduce one regulation, that they need to automatically repeal one or more regulations. And we need to take a look at that. We have other states getting rid of their income taxes, right? We're not in a position to do that. We're looking to potentially increase income taxes. We're going the opposite direction here, right? And so getting government out of the way, we have created systems, the government has created systems that are just far too complex. Our tax filing system, there is no reason that tax filing should be so incredibly difficult here in the Commonwealth. I see Mr. Hudak there in the back of the room filing taxes. I hear about it often, right? For the problems that his clients are going through, the problems that he's having, right? Problems of even the good things in the one big beautiful bill, but how that has created a problem for tax preparation and getting, where those numbers are supposed to go, right? It's very complicated. For the small business owner, they are accountant, attorney, compliance officer, manager, worker. They are all things. They wear all hats, okay? So anytime they have to go outside to look for that help in some of these technical specialty places, like for accounting, they can't do their own taxes. We need to streamline processes. We need to make it easier to own, operate, and be successful in a business community. There's no reason that you should have to go to 12 different agencies and get approval to be able to cut hair, right? We've made it very hard on individuals to do what we would like them to do, is be self-sufficient and be self-employed.
We hear all the time from our members at the Manufacturers Association, it's a lot easier to make insert product here, whether that be beer, crayons, helicopters, steel, than it is to keep the government happy, and it shouldn't be that way.
Sure.
Go ahead.
One thing,
please.
So to add on to Greg, what he was saying, so when you talk about policy, I was really surprised. I've spent a little time in Nashville, Tennessee. I was really surprised to learn that at some point the legislature passed a bill that it's illegal to have paparazzi in Nashville. All the stars moved there, right? They wanted that town to beat LA at its own game. Mm-hmm. They're doing movies there. They're having great music production. People are locating there. It's just a little bit of a mindset to say, where's the opportunity? Is there a chance somehow that the state of Pennsylvania becomes a little bit more opportunistic?
So I want to talk positively. We could complain, about state government all day probably, but let's flip it a bit and be positive. What does a successful entrepreneur? I'm going to go down the line here. Mike, we'll start with you. What does a successful entrepreneurial venture in a community mean for that community?
Well, that's pretty simple, I think. If somebody starts a business or buys a business and grows it, it means employment opportunities for one or many individuals. It means taxes into the local municipality, county, etc. Most of all, I think it means that we believe in this town. We believe in this area. I've always been a big believer in Cumberland County and central Pennsylvania. I just paid a school tax bill, and I'm beginning to wane. I really am, because of the amount of that tax bill. And so, but I think staying positive, it means this is where we want to put down roots. We don't ever want to lose that.
Greg?
So I think when you think of the small Main Street business, right, you think of the sponsor of your kids and your grandkids' Little League teams, right? You don't see a lot of big businesses out there. No, those are the local pizzeria. That's the nail shop, the salon, right? That's a part of the community. These are our neighbors, our friends, our family, these folks that we see at church every weekend, right? Local jobs provide workforce stability, right? Think of if you only have one large employer in that geographical area and everyone's employed there, what happens when there is a pandemic, a recession, that business just simply goes out of business or relocates overseas? What happens to all those jobs? What happens to that entire area when that's the case? Stronger towns lead to better property values for their homes. You earn $1, you make $1 locally, you earn $1 locally, you often spend that same dollar locally, right? And going in a circle and helping out your other local neighbors. Economic resilience, like I was saying, you can't just be relying upon one business for all your employment. Every business makes up a need and a desire within those communities, and so small employers are incredibly important to the fabric.
Another down the line question. Is Pennsylvania's biggest problem policy, culture, or execution?
I don't think it's culture. I really don't. I'd have to say, I'd like to sort of sub in apathy. Okay. I was just talking to a local township supervisor who, very conservative municipality. He's the last of 5. It was 5 Republicans. Now it's 4 Democrats and him. He said if he was on the ballot, he would have got beat, right? That's apathy. Like, how did that happen? I've spoken recently with a freshman state rep who said he knew it was bad. He had no idea it was this bad. You know, now that he's been in the House for a little while. He said, you know, some show up, some don't. Leaders vote for members. It's just really a bad situation. So is that policy? Maybe it is now. I think it's apathy.
Greg?
I would agree. Apathy. The status quo is good enough. That's sometimes the mindset. We need more business owners in Harrisburg, in Washington, D.C., that understand what it's like to go to bed every night believing that your business, you're the only one that believes your business is going to be successful, right? Having that dream, having that goal of having a large company one day, but being small. I think we do have an issue policy-wise, for sure. There are many bad topics out there, no shortage of bad bills out there. But we also have the lack of individual thinking, I think. When it comes to time to vote, oftentimes rank and file members are told how they will vote, regardless of what their personal feelings on a bill may be. And that is to accomplish the overall goal of that caucus's leadership, right? And it may not be the individual members. And so I would like to see us get back to voting your own conscience, voting what your actual beliefs are, not having groupthink, standing up for, you might be the only one in your caucus to stand up and say something or have a different opinion, but you know what? That's okay.
Some closing thoughts, Mike, looking forward. If you could, it's really hard, but to pick one policy change or maybe one area of policy change that you would encourage Harrisburg legislators to focus on, what would it be?
I think the only one really is school choice. And I think it's going to take, from what I can gather, it's going to take a Republican governor to get that done. I think the schools, when you look at the cost of these schools, and the finished product and Every time you turn around, well, geez, we got to build another $30 million school because of population growth. It's like, it makes no sense.
Understood.
And I think it's school choice.
Greg, the same question for you. I know Representative Gaydos wasn't here today, but we can share with her your answer, and it can be her next bill that she introduces. How about that?
I think she's actually already on this bill as a co-sponsor,
Good.
so we're already ahead of the game. I think what the government could do is get out of the way and really stop trying to help, right? But the one policy issue would be net operating losses. If you're a pass-through entity, an LLC, sole proprietor, you do not have the same benefit that corporate brethren do, right? Corporations can take a net operating loss. You had a loss in year 1, year 2. You can roll that forward and use that to your advantage for your tax liability moving forward. If you are a small business, you do not have that same opportunity. You cannot carry forward those same net operating losses. This thwarts business entrepreneurship, and only a few percent of businesses actually make it. Only 56% of businesses will make it to year 5. Only 35% of small businesses will make it to year 10. And so we really need to look at how we can put more money back into the pockets of the business owners so that they can put more money into the pockets of the workers, expand by hiring more folks, expand by growing the company, buying new equipment, all putting money back into the economy, boosting all ships. So.
Well, let's take a moment to thank our panelists for lending their expertise and obviously for their passionate advocacy on behalf of the entrepreneurs of Pennsylvania. And that is all the time that we have, and that actually concludes the content in this room on this stage for today. So at this time, we all have to clear the ballroom so that the staff can turn this over for the Liberty Dinner beginning at 6:30. So in the words of one of my favorites, the late, great Stuart Scott, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.